Good morning, and welcome to a special edition of AI Unraveled. It is Thursday, December 18th, 2025. Today, we are stepping away from the press releases and looking at the reality on the ground. If you are a developer, or if you manage developers, you have felt it. The breathless enthusiasm of 2023 is gone. In its place is something clinically described in technical forums as AI fatigue. We have analyzed thousands of discussions from our local Alama, our experienced devs, and X to bring you this report. The data is clear. This isn't just the trough of disillusionment. It is an active revolt against tools that are becoming lazy, corporate workflows that feel like surveillance, and a marketing narrative that has completely detached from reality. From Gemini 3.0 refusing to write code, to the looming threat of model collapse due to synthetic data inbreeding, we are taking a forensic look at what is actually breaking in the AI ecosystem right now. But before we dive into today's strategic briefing, stop marketing to the masses, start briefing the C-suite. You have seen the power of AI Unraveled, zero noise, high signal intelligence for the world's most critical AI builders. Now, leverage our proven methodology to own the conversation in your industry. We create tailored, proprietary podcasts designed exclusively to brief your executives and your most valuable clients. Stop wasting marketing spend on generic content. Start delivering must-listen strategic intelligence directly to the decision makers. Ready to define your domain? Secure your strategic podcast consultation now at the link in our show notes. This podcast is created and produced by Etienne Newman, senior software engineer and passionate soccer dad from Canada. Let's unravel the reality.
Welcome back to the deep dive. So, you've handed us this huge stack of sources. We've got articles, developer notes, and just months and months of Reddit discourse. And it all points to this fascinating and, frankly, pretty wearing trend. For the last 2 years, it felt like software development was just riding this massive high.
Generative boom. It was all AGI promises and just this, exponential excitement.
Exactly.
And that era is over. I mean, as we're closing out 2025, the whole mood in the developer community has, it's completely shifted. That excitement is gone.
Replaced by exhaustion.
Just pure exhaustion.
Absolutely. The dominant feeling now, and you see it so clearly in forums like Llama and our experienced devs, is what we're calling AI fatigue.
It's a real thing, this profound psychological burnout, but it's also coupled with some very complex, very real technical disillusionment.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Our mission for this deep dive is to really map out the landscape of this fatigue. We're going to do that by digging into the 3 big controversies we see dominating all the chatter.
Right.
First, this sudden, frustrating laziness that's showing up in the best models. Then the resentment from what people are calling forced corporate integration.
And the big one.
Yeah. The existential threat of model collapse.
And to really get why this is all happening right now, you have to understand the hype utility gap.
The hype utility gap.
It's this massive, and I mean massive, distance between the marketing, AGI, robots replacing CEOs, and the daily buggy reality of trying to manage these tools.
They're just not reliable.
They're non-deterministic, they're constantly changing, and that gap has finally just collapsed right on top of the user.
So let's start with the psychological side of that collapse. I mean, the sources, they just keep talking about developers being exhausted, not just by the tech, but by the whole story around it.
That's the core of it. It's the relentless overselling. When every single minor update, a slightly bigger token window is framed as a paradigm shift or some breakthrough towards AGI, it creates what you could call the boy who cried AGI dynamic.
Yeah, I like that.
After 2 years of this, developers they're desensitized. They see a headline and they're immediately skeptical, not excited.
And that skepticism, it must really bleed into their day-to-day work. It leads to this trust deficit. The developer's job, it's fundamentally changed, hasn't it?
It has. It's no longer about writing.
It's about reviewing.
That is the critical insight. See, writing code is constructive. It's creative work. You get into a flow state.
Right.
But reviewing opaque, non-deterministic AI code, that's completely different cognitive load. It's more taxing. The generated code can't be trusted, so you have to do a line-by-line audit.
Which, for anything complex, probably takes longer than just writing it yourself.
The sources show it often does. So any speed you gain from the AI typing is just lost. It's lost to the friction of verification, and it completely shatters that flow state.
And when the model gets it wrong, the result is something the community has a great name for. AI slop. What exactly is slop? Is it just bad code?
It's more specific than that, and it's sneaky. Slop is this flood of low-quality, super verbose, unoptimized code that, yeah, it might work, but it pollutes the code base
It builds up technical debt.
instantly. And the developer's role shifts from being a creative engineer to being basically a janitor for AI-generated messes. That lack of creative satisfaction is a huge piece of the burnout.
So the code quality is nosediving, but the sources say this is being made worse by how management is handling it. If the code is often slop, why are companies pushing these tools so aggressively?
Well, that's where forced integration comes in, and it's a massive, massive source of resentment.
It's a shift from pull to push.
Exactly. The tech isn't being pulled by user demand anymore. It's being pushed by corporate strategy, probably to justify the huge investments they made during the hype.
And this push, it feels less like help and more like surveillance.
Precisely. You have companies mandating AI usage, and even worse, they're weaponizing the metrics. They're tracking things like frequency of calls to the coding assistant.
They're reading prompt logs.
Analyzing prompt logs, linking commit velocity directly to your AI use. It's seen not as a tool to help you, but as this mechanistic way to measure your productivity. It's surveillance, it's control.
It's like the old Microsoft Clippy went from being annoying to being a corporate spy. That's a huge leap.
And the privacy erosion is a massive flashpoint, especially for developers who really care about that stuff. The example that comes up again and again is AI being integrated into, say, email clients. The assistant just starts reading your attachments, reading your emails, often for model training.
Unless you find some hidden opt-out button.
Exactly. You have to navigate this complex process to get out of it. The feeling is that these tools are just being shoehorned in everywhere to feed the data machine, and it just deepens that trust deficit.
And before we get to the performance failures, there's this other anxiety bubbling up. Energy guilt. Is that really moving the needle for developers, or is it more of a niche talking point?
Oh, it's definitely moving the needle now, because it ties directly into the perceived lack of ROI.
Okay, I see.
Developers see the insane compute cost required to generate code that is, in the end, just slop. And that fuels this growing idea that the AI bubble is leaking.
Why am I using this tool that's burning tons of energy to make flawed code when I could just write good code myself faster?
That's the question they're asking, especially when the old promise of scaling laws, that more compute always means more intelligence, seems to have, flatlined into a logarithmic plateau.
So the ROI skepticism deepens.
It does. Inference costs are still high, the killer apps beyond a chatbot are still missing, and the environmental cost just becomes one more piece of emotional justification to just walk away from the tools.
Okay, let's pivot to the technical side of this, the degradation crisis. The number one complaint we're seeing in the sources is a weird one. Model laziness. What are developers actually talking about when they use that word?
Laziness is a very specific failure mode. It's not just that the model gets something wrong, it's that it seems actively unwilling to finish the job.
So it just gives up.
It gives up. It'll offer you placeholders, it'll truncate the code, or it'll just flat out refuse to complete a task it's supposed to know how to do. It's a failure of what you might call conscientiousness, not raw intelligence.
And we're seeing this in the flagship models. The sources really zero in on Gemini 3.0 Pro. They call it the minimum effort machine.
The complaints are so detailed. Users are saying Gemini 3.0 Pro is an absolute beast at high-level abstract math, which shows it has a high IQ, right?
Yeah.
But it shows profoundly low conscientiousness in its work. You ask it to refactor some complex code, and it just returns comments like, rest of code remains the same.
Oh, that's infuriating.
Or it'll just ignore the context of other files. It'll do the easy part, like the front-end button, and then completely forget the back-end logic.
And it won't even act as an agent, even when it's integrated to do that.
Correct. Users say it doesn't launch tests, doesn't build, it won't check syntax. It just defaults to the path of least resistance, which is to be a passive, inert text generator.
And we're seeing similar reports about Anthropic's models, like Claude Sonnet 4.5. This all feeds into one of the most cynical theories out there, the inflation theory.
This is the big suspicion, that providers are deliberately degrading their own successful models over time.
Why would they do that?
Two reasons. One, they quantize them, reduce their precision, to save a ton on compute costs. Or two, they make the current tier worse, to make the next more expensive tier look way better by comparison.
So it's just like real-world inflation. You're paying the same price for a product that's quietly getting worse.
That's the theory. The provider gets you hooked, captures the market, then optimizes for their cost, not for your quality. And with Claude specifically, this dumbing down is also tied to the safety tax.
Safety tax.
The model defaults to these super generic, overly safe answers unless you really, really push it with your prompts. It creates so much friction. In its agent mode, it'll stop and ask for manual terminal approval for every single file it wants to create.
Which completely defeats the purpose of an automated agent.
It stalls the entire workflow.
So beyond these individual bugs, we have the big one, the existential threat that was just a theory 2 years ago, model collapse.
And now developers feel like they're seeing it happen in real time.
Explain what that is again.
Model collapse is the theory that if you train AI on AI-generated data on all the slop we were just talking about, you eventually get a catastrophic loss of quality and variance in your future models.
So the models are just refining the past. They're not learning anything genuinely new from human creativity. It's like digital inbreeding.
That is the perfect analogy. They're creating a feedback loop of stagnation. Developers call it the echo chamber effect. The outputs become probabilistically concentrated, they're repetitive, they lack those creative outlier solutions you get from people. The internet is filling with slop, and the models are just feeding on themselves.
Which explains why the big promise of agents is failing so hard right now.
Right. An agentic workflow means you're chaining together multiple unreliable parts. If one step has a 95% success rate, which sounds good.
Chain 5 of those together, and your chance of failure skyrockets.
Exactly. The consensus is clear. AI cannot write reliable code without a maestro. It needs a human to guide the big architectural choices.
So all this distrust in the cloud models is pushing people toward local solutions. For control, for privacy. But that whole pivot runs straight into a brick wall, doesn't it? The hardware divide.
It's a huge wall. The dream of running your own powerful private model locally just crashes into the VRAM crisis. There's a memory vacuum in the consumer market.
What does that mean in real terms?
The sources say the hardware you need for a truly competent local model is absurd. We are talking professional-grade setups with 512 gigs of RAM or dual RTX 4090s just to run these things without crippling them.
Okay, so that's impossible for 99% of developers. So if you're one of the have-nots with, say, 16 or 24 gigs of VRAM, what do?
You have to compress the models. You quantize them, which means you reduce the precision of the model's weights, say from 16-bit down to 4-bit, just to shrink the file size so it fits in your video memory. It's the only way.
Which leads to the quantization conundrum.
The conundrum is that the compression you need to run the model often reintroduces the exact stupidity and hallucinations you were trying to escape by going local in the first place.
So you gain privacy, but you lose reliability.
It's a vicious cycle. It just pushes you back towards those lazy cloud APIs, despite all the problems.
But the open source community is fighting back. Right, with specialization.
Absolutely. This is the key trend for the end of 2025. Developers are realizing if they can't afford the giant, competent generalist, maybe they can use smaller, specialized models that do one thing really, really well.
Can you give us an example?
We're seeing models like Malmo 2 and Olmo 3 pop up. So instead of one huge, lazy model trying to code and write a poem and plan your vacation, Malmo 2 focuses only on grounding. That's the ability to point to specific pixels in an image or timestamps in a video and link them to text. And in that one narrow task, it can actually outperform the giant proprietary models.
So that's where the sovereignty comes from, specialization.
It's a huge part of the developer identity going forward. So if you take all of this, the frustration, the slop, the surveillance, the hardware limits, we're now officially in the pragmatic era. This is the post-hype reality. AI isn't a miracle worker.
It's just buggy software.
It's just buggy software that can be incredibly powerful, but only if you use it correctly.
So the list of things AI can actually do reliably has gotten a lot shorter since 2023. What actually works today in Q4 2025?
The list is surprisingly narrow, but it's still very valuable. First is refactoring and scaffolding. Drafting tests, converting boilerplate repetitive, structured stuff.
Okay.
The second big use case is rubber ducking, using the LLM as a brainstorming partner, a sounding board. Not as an oracle giving you the answer, it just helps you clarify your own logic.
What else is on the reliable list?
Context-aware search, basically replacing Stack Overflow inside your own company's code base. It's great at finding that needle in a haystack of internal docs. And finally, automating low-risk tasks.
Like writing documentation or Git commit messages.
Exactly. The tasks are valuable, but if the AI messes up, the consequences are low.
And to fight the burnout from constantly switching models, the advice we're seeing is the one-tool strategy.
It's just practical wisdom. Stop chasing the state of the art across 10 different APIs. Just master one imperfect tool. Learn its quirks, learn its failure modes, learn how to prompt it consistently. You'll get way better results and reduce your own mental load.
So what does this all mean? If AI isn't replacing developers, what does the developer of 2026 actually look like? We hear this term cyborg workflow thrown around.
The developer is the cyborg, and the job isn't gone, it's just shifted. The primary skill is now forensic review.
Forensic review.
Your most valuable skill is the ability to spot a subtle logical hallucination that's hidden in code that looks perfectly fine on the surface. You have to change your entire mindset.
You treat the AI as if it's lying until you can prove it's not.
Exactly. The developer becomes a detective.
And the architect, the maestro, that role is more important than ever.
Absolutely. The God model approach, one big model to solve everything that's out. Now it's about integration orchestration. You chain together small, reliable agents, one for tests, one for logic, one for deployment.
And you use prompt engineering as a form of architecture.
You build strict guardrails and provide so much context that the AI can't drift or get lazy. You're turning it from a flaky senior architect into a very reliable, very supervised junior intern.
So this AI fatigue we're seeing, it sounds less like a failure and more like a healthy, necessary correction.
It's a healthy immune response. The industry is rejecting the infection of unbounded hype, and it's moving into what you could call productive disillusionment. The old prompt and pray developer is obsolete. The future belongs to the person who treats AI as this powerful but deeply flawed tool that needs constant supervision and strict architectural control.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for you to mull over. This whole conversation has been about the limits of these huge generalist models. So, if the pragmatic future isn't bigger but smaller, highly specialized models running locally and avoiding that generalist laziness entirely, what overlooked niche problem in your industry could be perfectly solved by a specialized, focused AI. Think small, think local, and go find that niche.
That is your reality check for December 18th. The signal for today is pragmatism. The magic phase of AI is officially dead. We are now in the era of software engineering. The Reddit discourse confirms that the developers winning in Q4 2025 are the ones who have stopped chasing the God model and started treating AI like a junior intern. Useful, but requiring constant supervision and forensic review. If you're frustrated by lazy models and AI slop, know that you are not alone. It is a healthy immune response from the industry. The future belongs to the cyborg developer, who can spot the hallucination, not the prompt and pray amateur. Before you go, a reminder for the leadership listening. Stop measuring your developers by their prompt logs. If you want to understand how to actually leverage these tools without burning out your workforce, let's talk. We build proprietary briefings that cut through the hype. Secure your strategic podcast consultation at the link in the show notes. This podcast is created and produced by Etienne Newman, senior software engineer and passionate soccer dad from Canada. Stay skeptical, stay pragmatic, and I'll see you tomorrow.